Welcome everybody to the webinar Smart Agribusiness, organized by Bühler AG and eProd Solutions on request by UNIDO, Department of Digitalization. My name is Caston. I'm the CRO and co-founder of eProd Solutions. Today's webinar is about 2.5 hours and will be repeated in the afternoon, so you're welcome to participate in any of them. There are several presentations, and at the end there will be a panel discussion. Each session will be interactive, but we would like you to actually post your questions into the chats and also any remarks. Microphones are muted, unfortunately, due to the format of the event. We will start our webinar today with opening remarks from Bernardo Calzadilla Sarmiento, the Managing Director of the Directorate of Digitalization, Technology and Agribusiness, as well as the Director of Department of Digitalization, Technology and Innovation at UNIDO. He's leading the work on quality and standards for trade facilitation, investment for sustainable development, and innovation in the context of the fourth industrial revolution. He will be followed by Virpi Stuckey, who is the Chief of Rural Entrepreneurship, Job Creation and Human Security at the division at UNIDO. She oversees the division's interventions on improving the income and employment opportunities for women, youth and crisis-affected populations by empowering people with demand-driven skills and by fostering entrepreneurship. Welcome, Mr. Bernardo.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. Good morning, dear colleagues, everybody. I'm very pleased to be the one to warmly welcome all the participants to the seminar on smart agribusiness. Probably this is what the video was trying to show us. Agriculture is the productive sector where we have the largest population of poor households. It is where we have most of the use of land surface and especially water. 70% of global fresh water withdrawal comes from the sector. We know that the population will grow from 7.6 to 9.6 billion towards 2050, and there is a need to revolutionize the food production. There is a shrinking of essential natural resources. We have tremendous impact on climate change, and maybe smart agribusiness is one of the technology solutions that can help in this regard. UNIDO defines smart agribusiness on the applications of this technology, be it digital transformation, or as we have put it forward within UNIDO's framework for the fourth industrial revolution. What is important is we have a framework, be it digital transformation, innovation, smart sectors, that is mainstreaming digital and gender responsive, sustainable transformation. We would like also to focus on the SMEs, to upscale the digital capabilities in the member states. So one pillar also of this is awareness raising and skills development. And this webinar, thanks to this cooperation with Villa, is a contribution to this awareness raising, and hopefully we will move forward to work together on skills and training. And for today, I wish fruitful and enjoyable discussions. Back to you.
Almut, you were on mute, but I think you handed over to me. So thanks a lot, and thanks, Bernardo. I wanted to mention that this webinar is a direct follow-up from an expert group meeting, which was organized September last year. And one of the participants was from Bühler. And afterwards, we were brainstorming on how do we get this topic forward. And we also noticed that the kind of information that UNIDO has internally on this topic is still relatively limited, and that's why the webinar idea came up. So I would like to thank Bühler and their partner eProd for putting together this program and organizing this webinar for us. We also mentioned or recognized during the expert group meeting that the agribusiness and agricultural challenges are many today, as Bernardo mentioned, population growth, climate change, scarce resources, and all these means that we need to do agriculture and agribusiness in a more precise and accurate way. And more precise means smarter ways. And smarter ways means using advanced and modern technologies. However, there are certain enablers that need to be in place for this smart agribusiness to function. And the expert group meeting identified 6 enablers: IT infrastructure and accessibility, skills and entrepreneurship, and finally governance and finance. We also asked the experts to identify some entry points for UNIDO's potential involvement in this field of smart agribusiness. And we came up with 4 potential entry points. Firstly, convening ecosystems, basically bringing together all the actors in the smart agribusiness value chain. Then human capital development, and then certain aspects of precision agriculture, and finally food security. Also on the value chain segments where the expert thought that UNIDO could add the most value was in the pre-production, in the post-harvest, and in the processing segments. So with these entry points in mind, I would like to wish all the participants a very fruitful learning experience, and I hope that there will be many new ideas for concrete prototypes or pilots that will come out of this learning webinar. Thank you very much. Over to you, Almut.
Thank you, Virpi. So we would like to start with a very nice presentation on history, the history of agricultural technology. This will be given by Dr. Sean Ferris. Sean Ferris is a Senior Technical Advisor, Agricultural, Livestock and Markets for East Africa at Catholic Relief Services. Sean provides a lot of technical advice on not only livelihood strategies and market systems, but also digital integration, innovation, and as such supports the business development, the technical briefs, and the capacity building of all the country programs of CRS in Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Somalia. Sean, over to you.
Thanks very much, Almut, and a warm welcome to everybody from UNIDO today. I'd just like to start off today with a fairly general introduction to what is agricultural technologies and how is that sort of supporting the work that we're all doing. So just let me go ahead. Can you see that okay? My screen clear?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so let's just kick off then. Okay, so part 1 then. This is actually going to be a talk then just about a whole series of revolutions that have been going on in agriculture for quite a long time. Now, as you know, I would say that agriculture or people have been around for about 200,000 years, apparently. And farming really has been something which has really underpinned a lot of the innovation and the organization, particularly settled organization, for about the last 10,000 years. So about 5% of the time that we've been running around on this planet. And as the previous speaker said, you know, the new challenges that we have is that we currently have to feed sort of 8.5 billion by 2030, which is not so far away, heading up to 10 billion sort of areas by 2050. So we've really got to find a lot of different, smarter ways to get the right types of food to the right types of people at an affordable price. So lots of different things to do in that process. So let me just go through some of the steps that have happened over the last 10,000 years. So agriculture then 1.0 started about 10,000 years ago, really with the domestication of a few plants and animal species. So a lot of our major crops that we're aware of today, things like wheat, oats, teff in Uganda, in Ethiopia, rice, beans, all those sorts of things started to be selected by farmers, and over time those variety or the different crops were used in different ways and different varieties started to emerge. So let's just think about that in terms of a revolution in agriculture that has been lasting, well, that has been going on for about past 10,000 years. Let's fast forward that a little bit. It's only really in the 17th century, between the 1700s and the 1900s, that we see a major change, and that starts with mechanization. And that was associated with the Industrial Revolution, and that provided a huge amount of new technology, which enabled people to take advantage of horsepower, but also steam power, and at the same time also introduced industrial synthetic fertilizer. So with that process, that series of technology introductions allowed us to basically expand upon the production of agriculture. So you'll see at that time that field sizes per person farming tripled in size, and food became a lot cheaper. But we were actually not increasing productivity very much on a unit area. So most of the changes that we saw then were basically through an increase in, or an expansion of the production. So that allowed a lot of people then to provide cheaper food, and it allowed very rapid urbanization. And it was also a lot of the start of the globalization process. So that period has lasted about 300 years. And just to say that many countries are actually still in this stage. So they have selected a lot of crops, and they're starting to go through the mechanization process. So that's sort of 200-300 years old. Revolution 3 then starts only in the 1930s. So in the 1930s, we have a shift then away from traditional crop breeding towards the introduction of improvements or major improvements in genetics. And that's when we see the adoption of hybrid crops. So you can see that graph on the right-hand side. Up until about the mid-1800s, we're producing about a ton a hectare. After that time, as we introduce hybridization, you're starting to get that typical hockey stick kind of exponential rate of growth kind of idea. And that has now pushed productivity in some of the more industrial countries for a crop like maize over 10 tons a hectare. So a 10 times increase in the productivity, and that process has been repeated across several different types of major food crops, some of them with traditional breeding, a lot of them now looking at hybridization. So that process was called the Green Revolution, and that really took place in the 1950s and 60s. That duration is about 30 years. Okay, so it doesn't really, well, it takes until around the mid-2000s, or 2010, sorry, that you're starting to get the introduction of mainstream commercial computerization and cybergenetics into the food and agricultural systems. So this process then is starting to integrate the production or the physical production with this virtual world where we're starting to bring in digitization. And as one of the earlier speakers said, this was then called precision agriculture or digital farming. And it works its way through to smart farming as more and more types of services are introduced into the system. But this has really only been mainstreamed for the last 10 years. So it's a fairly recent event that's happening within the agricultural system. And if we fast forward again to Revolution 5, now we're looking at a system where we are starting to, and this is really only happening at this very time, we're now looking at a system where you're seeing a great deal of automation coming into the farming production systems. This is then linked completely, seamlessly with GPS processes, and it's also integrating a lot of different services. Alongside that production side of looking at agriculture, we're also seeing a massive change in the digitization of genetics. And this is coming about through things like CRISPR, which is a real gene editing system. And this is something which is also deeply computerized. And you've got this kind of mash then of these two things coming together, where people are starting to change the genetics using a much more deeply computerized system. And that is feeding into a system of automated production. Okay, at the same time, you've got another kind of approach where people are starting to actually de-link production of things like protein or animal type products and plant type products from the actual organisms themselves. So in the future, you will see that things like meat production is not going through an animal production phase. It's simply something that is being produced in the lab. Similar things happening in plant products. And so you're starting to see computerization, digitization really affecting the base products that we're looking at. So you've got a fully automated field production system. You've got protected farming, which is looking to support urban centers. And then you also have these very traditional types of production, like high-value horticulture, but that is also being digitized and systematized with very clear chain of custody through the production system, also really being able to look at the provenance of those productions through traceability systems. So there's a lot more systemization going through the entire process, and this is happening kind of as we speak. So this is a revolution that is really taking place at the moment. And you can see there are now thousands of digital companies which look at every different aspect of our types of farming. And this is not a very new slide. If you look at something called Ag Tech Landscape 2021 or 22, there are so many different organizations and companies in this, I couldn't get them all on the screen. But just to say that you're getting this incredible fusion of technology with the crop production system. Final thing then, what we're heading towards is Agricultural Revolution 6. One of the big problems with all the revolutions up until now is that they take no account of the boundaries of productivity and the effects it is having on the climate, but also the long-term sustainability of our systems. So one of the things that you'll see coming into the way that we look at farming, and perhaps this is where computerization can be extremely helpful, is this idea of donut economics or boundary economics. And this is really looking at generating systems that are producing food in a way which is within what is sustainable within the global food system. So as we start to think about feeding several billion more people, that is only possible in a sustainable way if we also run that against economic and environmental models that allow us to do that in ways that means that we can manage, global systems more effectively. One of the most important things that computerization is going to help us with is being able to manage the commons. The commons are still fairly chaotic, and I'm talking here about the oceans, the pastures, and the more marginal areas that we will be farming in the future. And in those areas, I think we're going to have to look at new systems like blockchain, which we're going to hear about later today. But that's a way of actually introducing open ledger systems so lots and lots of people in very disparate parts of the world can all become involved in the management of systems at a global level. So I think that looking at more frictionless ways to engage computer systems to make things more sustainable is going to be really the exciting stuff that we'll be doing in the next 10 to 20 years. So the success of all of this then, and all the things that we'll be talking about today, is really for us to be able to capture all of these different changes within the agricultural systems, bring those ideas together, and be able to do that in a way which allows us to produce sustainably, profitably, but also get affordable food products to all the different segments across the world. So that's what I have, Almut, just as a sort of an introduction. So I hope we can stay on time with that, and back to you.
Thank you very much. That was really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to 6.0. To everyone else, if you have any questions, any remarks, please put them in the chat. We are trying to then answer them as much as we can. So going forward, we will now have, so after this introduction to agricultural technology and the story of the history of it, we would like to follow with a session about smart agribusinesses, the different processing technologies that are currently used in different industrializing countries. And we'll present 3 different use cases. The first one will be on blockchain throughout the value chain. The second one on food processing in smart processing companies. And the last one on outgrown management. The first one will be presented by Camilla Valeria Cavaliere, who is a management engineer at Bühler AG with wide technical competences specialized in information and communication technology. She focuses on how to integrate new technologies in business, favoring society acceptance and building valuable use cases that maximize corporate benefits. Camila will present together with her colleague Fernando Santiago Cajaraville, who is also an expert at Bühler AG in project and change management and business processes. He works on end-to-end solutions for projects within the construction and retail industry. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Almut, for the introduction.
Thank you.
Fernando.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much, UNIDO, for organizing this webinar and for taking Bühler in account to present the different solutions we have in the smart agribusiness. We are going to do a presentation, me and Camila, about the use of blockchain and the one platform we are developing within Bühler to bring the different data in the different supply chain in the food industry in a blockchain ecosystem. No, we consider blockchain an enabled technology that it will allow to bring all the ecosystem together. Now, one of the points that this report from UNIDO released like 2 months ago, and big comment, blockchain can be an enabler for that, to bring an ecosystem together. And after these small words, I'm going to present my screen, and yeah, let's start the webinar.
Let's go.
Let's go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is a presentation, as mentioned before, about blockchain technology and how blockchain technology can improve the smart agribusiness. Now, the presenters, this is for your reference later on, and as we will send the presentation is Camila and me, and the agenda. We are going to go through a little bit about what is blockchain today, blockchain in the supply chains, in the food industry, and after that, I will do the first 4 points, and after that, Camila will present a specific use case on the Bühler Dash network, that is the blockchain platform that Bühler have to hold all the networks we are building on blockchain. Well, let's start then. What is blockchain? It might many of you today have heard about what is blockchain, some of you haven't, but basically blockchain is as simple as that, a distributed database. It's a distributed database that was first released in 2008 through a white paper called Bitcoin that might everyone have heard about, and they built on the top of the blockchain technology a cryptocurrency. This cryptocurrency is called blockchain. We can go in a really complex explanation about how blockchain works, but basically for me, the main idea beyond the technical stuff is that it's a distributed database, that in this distributed database, there is only one version of the data for all the integrants of the database. That means in a supply chain, no every single part of the supply chain that have their own data. There is only one version for everyone. And this version of the data is immutable. That means no one can change that version of the data. That means that remain immutable through the whole history of the product or the whole history of the transaction. That is quite powerful in terms of the impact of the blockchain technology on the supply chain. No? On the top of that, that is one of the main application of the blockchain, now the traceability and visibility that is going to bring to the supply chain. But what we are, because we are speaking about blockchain, we are speaking about blockchain, but what we are about blockchain today? If we are following the stuff on the news or the different application of blockchain, we can hear time to time really powerful statements. No, that is going to revolutionize completely the agribusiness, that is a new era in the world food supply chain, that is going to change completely everything. But at the moment, we are not seeing that. I mean, we are seeing many projects and many promises, and we are not seeing that. Why not? Well, one of the main reasons is I want to just to clarify what we are exactly with blockchain. No, this is an hyper cycle that Gartner releases every year about different technologies, and when we are speaking about blockchain and blockchain using the supply chains, that is in this case here, and at that sorry for the or the rectangle is not properly done, but it's at the top of the peak. No, I mean, we are at the top. Blockchain technology and different applications in the supply chain, we are at the top of the peak on the expectation. No, there are many expectations on that, and we are going through, I think it's gonna go through in the next years through a slope of we call dissolute cement. That means that many of the ideas, many of the expectations we are not going to meet this expectation, but some of them is going to remain, and some of them are going to change really the smart and agribusiness and the different supply chain. No. Let's try to understand how blockchain can be implemented in a supply chain and why it's important for a supply chain and for the agriculture supply chain. No, we can see in agriculture supply chain, this is a really simplified supply chain of the food industry. You know, we have a production stage, handling, storage, processing, distribution, and consumption. Nowadays, although we have the same product going through the different stages, we can see in the middle, we have different data silos. That means of each product, although it's the same product, we have different records within the different actors. Now, what is bringing this to the supply chain? First of all, is bringing a really complex supply chain and really disaggregated. This is, as the food industry is really complex and really disaggregated, and we have all these data silos through the different stages of the supply chains, make a completely opaque supply chains. No, creating these opaque supply chains have an impact in the end customer. No, this impact is going to be a lack of trust of the customers in the different products we are offering them at the moment. No, I mean in agricultural products. We have seen this on the, for example, in the horse meat in the horse meat crisis. 6 years ago in Europe, where many products were contaminated with horse meat and was not declared at the time, and that was the main reason the customer is lacking this trust on the different products. No, and it's happened the same with when different products claim different properties. No, they are bio, they are ecological, or they are sustainable products. We have to provide to the customer with this trust, no, with this assurance what they are buying is what they are buying. No, and for this, blockchain technology is a great technology. It's a great enabler at the moment. And why this? I mean, basically, the food industry consumes, as Bernardo mentioned, the 70% of the fresh water of the world, 1/3 of the energy, and unfortunately, 1/3 of all the food we produce ends in the bin. I mean, is waste. That means one third of the global energy consumed is as well ends on the bin, and exactly with the 70%, with 1/3 of the 70% of fresh water used to produce waste. Then a way to trust is we are able to track with blockchain all the different parts and get a better understanding of the supply chain with blockchain, a better transparency. We will be able to tackle some of these problems. No, then what blockchains enable? As mentioned before, we are going to be able to break the data silos. We are going to go from a place where every single part of the supply chain have any single record of their data, where we are going to share the same data and the same record for all the integrants of the supply chain. That have a huge potential. Bringing visibility to the supply chain. Now, this visibility is going to be able to, in the future, to match demand and supply, and in some way, we are going to reduce the impact of the waste food in the supply chain. As well, it's going to bring food traceability. It's going to assure the end customer that the product that they are buying is the product is writing in the specs of the product. No, it's a way to assure to trace back all the products we have at the moment. Now, we have several examples. Camila is going through some of them later in the presentation, and this is mainly the main potential of the blockchain when we are speaking about supply chain. It's a single version of the truth. There is only one version for one record for all the supply chain. And blockchain in the food industry. What we understand blockchain in the food industry? We are, honestly speaking, in the implementation of blockchain in the food industry, we are in the early days. We are a small baby that start to walk. We consider from Buller we have different levels of implementation, what is a basic level, a medium level, and advanced level. We are at the moment in a basic level, where some companies are trying to bring the blockchain technology to the supply chains to prove the provenance of the products, to certify the origin of the products, to make sure to the clients that the products are ecological, bio, or they are sustainable, and to make sure, for example, that a product that is claimed coming from some specific area is from that specific area. In the next level, that is in the future, we consider it's in the near future, is going to allow to the supply chain to remove these data silos completely and to share information between the different integrants of the supply chains. That means it's going to increase the efficiency of the supply chains. It's going to impact directly in this reduction of waste that everyone is looking to get more sustainable supply chains, and it's going to remove the friction and the intermediaries that at the moment don't add much value at the supply chain of the product. That is one of the expectations that blockchain is going to bring in the following years. And when we are speaking in 10 years time, 5-10 years time, we are expecting to have really sustainable and resilient supply chains. That is, we can get really agile supply chains and synchronized supply chains where there is a clear match between supply and demand, and we will be able to reduce this waste on the food supply chain to almost to zero. And that is the reason. Why is this? This is because we have in the customer side, we are seeing a high trend from the customer that every day, the customer is asking for much more information. They are more conscious about what they are consuming, the impact of the environment, the products they are consuming, it has. And this trend is going to drive the implementation of blockchain. No, I mean, because the people who will be able to show that their products are sustainable, are traceable, they are going to get a premium in the market, not from their customer, because we are seeing at the moment from different market research that the end customer is asking for new products and new ways to track these products. And we are going to Camila now, when she's going to show one use case we have developed in the Bullet Dash network. And yeah, Camila.
Thanks, Fernando. Thank you very much for the introduction. All right, so Buller Dash network. This is a digital solution that is the outcome of the previous 1.5-2 years of development that we have conducted in Buller. Next slide, please. So this is a blockchain-based solution. So Dash stands for data sharing, that allows our customers to share within a network, a digital network that they created and that they trust, the datasets that they prefer in a secure and immutable manner. Just a short note, the customers that we're talking about are Buller customers. And so in this case, exactly, big food producers or big material producers. So the solution is designed to allow our customers to share within a network that they created datasets about the status of the production. So as Fernando has said before, we have different silos, but one of the biggest one is actually concerning the production. So let's say the handling of the raw material and the transformation of this raw material into production into products that then get used in, for example, the food industry. So there is a huge question about what happens inside the production site. And the Buller Dash network is designed in a way that the customer can share the data sets in real time coming directly from the production site with other participants of the supply chain. This could be, for example, farmers, right? So straight at the beginning of the supply chain. So maybe the farmers are interested in knowing what happens with their raw material, right? How are the raw material being then elaborated later on? Others could be logistics partners. So, okay, we have information about how the product is transferred from place to place. Others could be retailers, as they want to know what they are buying, as Fernando mentioned already. And other, also most importantly, could be certification bodies that want to know if the production is running according to regulatory standards, for example. There are a few benefits that come in together with the usage of the Bureau-Dash network for our customers. The first one is full control and ease of use, because the data that are shared by the customer, so the customer is in full control of this data. So they decide what they are sharing and with whom in the network that they created. And also it's pretty easy now to share data. Again, we destroy silos, and we allow the customer to share their own data and to link them with other data sets from other people in the network. Then we have compliance and auditability, because if the customer decides to invite also certification bodies or auditing parties, then these parties can check in real time if the customer is producing in compliance with the regulations, and also they can audit their processes even online. And then the final one that also Fernando mentioned is that by using Bureau-Dash network, our customer increase the transparencies of their production plans, and also they gain a really important differentiation point compared to other producers of similar type. Next slide, please. So the first use case that I would like to show you interests a customer of ours in the UK. And it really interests the first mile, I would say. So how the grains, so the wheat, is transported from the farmer up to the entrance of the milling plant. The issue there was that the supply chain was mostly based on paper. Information were shared, so absolutely not in real time. The farmer had no clue how their products were going on along the supply chain, and also the miller most of the time had very limited overview on where the grains were coming from. Next slide, please. So what we did still in the UK was to digitalize the supply chain that you see here now. So the workflow was starting with a merchant, that is the one that procures the grains for the miller. The merchant was placing an order to a grower or storekeeper that was then informed about the incoming order. A haulier was then reaching out to the grower or the storekeeper of grains to pick up the grains. The grower or storekeeper was giving the grains to the haulier, and the, let's say, benefit of using blockchain was, first of all, that the data were real-time shared. Everyone was along the supply chain aware of who was doing what at which time. So they also knew, the miller also knew where the grains were. And also, in case something went wrong, so for example, here you see the first time in which the smart contract gets rejected is when the vehicle inspection was not successful. What does that mean? Well, it means that the grower could actually have a big say on how the vehicle for transportation was. And in case this would have been too dirty, for example, the workflow, digital and physical, would have stopped immediately. And then exactly we have the receiving of the grains at the miller place. Next slide. These are just some screens of how the application looked like. The important thing to notice is that each workflow, so every time new grains were received, became a smart contract. And the miller, as much as all the other participants in the supply chain, they could have a look at the status of the smart contract, and also later have a look at it on a map. Now, the point here is this was just the first, one of the first use cases that we developed, and the goal was to improve transparency for our customers of what happened before the grains get delivered. The Bureau-Dash network is indeed designed actually to support several use cases. So if we change the tracked unit, so we don't want a batch of wheat anymore, we want a batch of rice instead. Or we don't want to know the location anymore, we want to know instead the quality. this can also be customized for our customers. Next slide. So the last comment from my side, and something that might help many people in this call, is to know, okay, that this sounds great, it's amazing, great that you did that, but how do we start? Next slide. So my recommendation for small, medium enterprises on how to start is, first of all, something that was mentioned also at the very beginning, like how do we enter? The first thing is to perform ecosystem and data sharing analysis. This means you need to understand in which ecosystem you are operating and which data are important to be shared in this ecosystem to solve the issues that you are facing as of today, right? In this way, you also understand if blockchain is something for you or not. Maybe you don't need a shared ledger on real time, you need some other type of collaboration with your ecosystem. So the first thing is to really put all the involved important actors at the same table. The second step is to select either a blockchain consortium or just an existing solution. I think Sean was showing at the beginning of this presentation a slide full of names of companies that are already operating in the system. I don't remember if I saw some blockchain companies, but the point is the solutions are already there. You don't need to create your own. You can just select either a consortium, blockchain consortium, to join, or you can just select a solution that basically fits your needs. And then the last part is application development or also integration of the solution. So in that case, either you let the consortium or the solution that you selected help you out creating an application that fits your need, or for example, you can integrate your solutions, your existing solution that you are already using in the solution that you are selecting or in the consortium that you are selecting, and start sharing data, for example, along your supply chains. All right, next slide. That was it from my side. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, that was exciting, very interesting, and will be followed by one of your colleagues, Eduardo Schellbauer. He's one of the technical teachers of the African Milling School in Kenya, and he will share his use case to food processing and smart mills. Before we start, I think we have two questions that maybe Camilla can still briefly answer. One is, what is the biggest added value of Büller's blockchain solution in comparison to business as usual? And would this UK solution also work in developing countries?
All right. Thanks,
Camilla,
Maximilian, for the question. Yes, both. We can.
Go first, please.
I take the first question. So the biggest added value. That's a very good question. There are many different blockchain solutions existing already out there. I would say the biggest added value of Bühler is the knowledge that we retain of the agribusiness, as well the knowledge that we retain of our customers, so how they actually process the incoming raw material, and also the possibility to extend and to link the blockchain solution that we offer with other digital solutions that Bühler offers on the plant itself, right? So we're talking about taking the data that we collect from the blockchain solution in the first mile and linking them very nicely with other digital solution that we deploy inside the plant, such as automation solutions and similar ones. That now would take a little bit longer to explain. But I would say this is the biggest added value. And Fernando, do you want to answer the second one?
Yeah, I will answer the second one. I mean, basically, if this solution can be implemented in developing countries, absolutely yes. I mean, there are many examples. In this case, we have developed one of the first use case in the UK market, because we have some clients there that they were interested in developing these blockchain solutions, but the platform is there. We can put on the top of the platform any kind of material or any kind of data we have at the moment. It's not the case of Bueller, but there is another companies that have developed blockchain solutions in developing countries to track, for example, a single mango from an area in Guatemala or Central America to a supermarket in the United States, one of the largest supermarket. Or we have another solutions or another companies that track that trying to put products from the small and medium enterprise directly in European markets or American markets without removing most of the intermediaries from the supply chain, and that is possible through blockchain. No, there are solutions in the market that have tested and proved that technology works as well in developing countries, and we will be happy as well to pilot them in another countries apart of the UK. The reason to do it in the UK is that here is one of our main clients, and they were really interested in test blockchain technology.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Eduardo, over to you. Please tell us more about your smart mills.
Yeah, I think you are mute.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I was just thanking UNIDO and eProd for receiving us Bueller here to show us of some of our solutions. So the smart mill. The Bueller smart mill starts with one solution that we created that is called Bueller Insights. Bueller Insights is about Industry 4.0, the potential of digitalization. To talk about really the Industry 4.0, of course, we have to talk about 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. We started everything, as Sean said, in the 1700s with the mechanization, steam power, to improve our production capabilities. Now, population was growing, things were becoming, there was a tendency that things would need to become cheaper and cheaper. So Industry 2.0 in the 1870 started with the mass production, assembly lines, and we had now electricity as well. After that, in Industry 3.0, we had computers and electronics, where all the automation that computers were able to give us, they were applied to the industry. Now, today, we have Industry 4.0, and Industry 4.0 is data, data, and data. This data that we develop, we are able to acquire with the Internet of Things, even blockchain, everything, we can use it and assess our, let's say, our industry to increase production capabilities, thus reducing food wastage, in our case, in the food industry, increase capacity because production has to grow for feeding the world. And we want to keep now uptime as well to increase capacity. Now, these data insights, we display it as customizable dashboards, where we are going to have some KPIs, where we can see those KPIs and use that to run downtime analysis, root cause analysis, condition monitoring, plant comparison, inline quality monitoring, and remote support. All of this would help us a lot to increase production in a way that I can give you an example. A customer sometimes has on wheat milling, which is my field, has production and a yield of flour of 75%, but we can still extract 3 to 4 more % on that production. So how can we do that? we need to have the data. We need to find where is the issue that might be causing such low yield, and the data insights will help us with that. Builder Insights implementation, it comes as well as creating your own solution. You would have an individual dashboard from whichever kind of solution that you might need. And there we would be able to detect trends and patterns. And we would be able in the future with that to use machine learning to create support. And we would be able to have as well with this data that we acquired to set up benchmarks. Benchmarks to know if we are really doing okay or not. Talking about data, how this data has to be protected. And today we are having the ISO 27001 to protect the data in our systems. Now, I just want to give you some examples, really, about what kind of solutions. I talked about industry, but what kind of solutions do we have? The first one is the yield management system. It's the example that I gave you about a customer that is not having fully, let's say, achieving the full extraction that he can. He is able to see that. He's able to see where it is with a customizable dashboard. He will be able to benchmark his own plants, and in the future, with the average from the industry, either from the region or from the whole world. He will be able on this dashboard to identify as well shifts, which shift is producing more, which shift might be producing less. And you would be able to tackle the issue on the right shift. Just this the information that would be taken by some scales that we have on the customer, and he would be able to see product by product. Here's an example of a product that is used as flour 1, and he would be able as well to go back in time to see how it was before. He would have as well trends. He could set trends on his dashboard and see if he is able to improve that on the throughput or the yield. Now the Builder Insights Replay is more of a solution where you would be able to see your whole plant working. I talked about wheat mill, but you can use it here as an extrusion plant for replaying everything that you might have. If you had any downtime, if you had any issues with the production on that, you would be able to see what happened before of that. And you would be able to work like a media player. You would be able to go fast forward, go back, and share the information. This in the future as well, there is one solution that we want to have is, let's say, hotspots, where are the issues that are happening on the plant. And let's say your equipment is breaking every 3 times a month, you would be able to check for that. And you would be seeing that if it's needed to change the equipment, if it's time to do a refurbishment or not. And then energy management system. The energy management system is, well, like the yield management system, but for energy. Today, we require a lot of energy on the wheat milling industry. There is more, let's say, more or less of a standard of 65 to 70 kilowatts per ton grinded of wheat. And of course, as much as you can reduce, the more profitable it becomes and the more sustainable it becomes. as well. You would be able, just like the yield management system, to analyze the current situation that you have. You would be able to set the trends, and by seeing which are the equipments that you are maybe expending most, you would be able to decrease the energy costs on that. And this would be the dashboard you would have for the whole plant, but you can have for each one of the equipments that you might have as well. And as the other ones, you would be able to go back and see a replay of the consumption of energy and such. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions from anyone? No, not for now. Then I would like to introduce my colleague Jan Willem van Caston, the CEO and co-founder of ePro Solutions.
Good morning, everybody. UNIDO, Willow, thank you for the opportunity to for this event. My name is Jan Willem van Kasteren. I'm together with Almut, the founder of ePro Solutions. And I would like to start with a little bit of background information, just very briefly, because this software ePro Solutions, which is a supply chain management platform, it was developed for another company that I started together with Almut in 2004. In a very poor area of Kenya, we organized an outgrower scheme with about 8,000 farmers. And it was for this company that we needed to organize farmer database, field inspections, collections, traceability, payment systems. And at that time, there were very few systems available, specifically not very advanced systems. So how you organize the farmers will depend a lot on how farmers are organized in the natural way. For example, sometimes some companies are buying directly from farmers in a one-to-one relationship. Other companies are buying through groups or farmer cooperatives. Some might organize some regional hubs, or they have a nucleus farm, for example, in certain areas that is buying from farmers. So this is really the essence of how you will organize the farmers, because there are many consequences, specifically regarding the cost and also for scaling. So if you work through groups, of course, you can reach many farmers at the same time. But it's also more difficult if you train the farmers not directly, but indirectly. It's very difficult to organize cost-effective training programs. So there are many complications there. So how does this now look in practice? So you have a buyer, like the man on the picture, for example. He has a market. He can convince the farmers to produce a certain product for him. And then basically some of the problems start, because the buyer would need to know where the fields of the farmers are, the groups, the individual farmers. He might want to sign contracts, manage field inspections or certificates, for example, for fair trade or organic certification. Surveys, might work together with an NGO that needs a baseline study, the collections, payments, and so on. So the reality on the ground can be quite complex. So the trader can, for example, buy through cooperatives or groups or farmers or all kinds of combinations. The trader might have relationships with donor-funded programs that give technical support, maybe even through UNIDO. And ideally, the trader would have a database that can function in the cloud. All the fields, farmers, collection centers should be geo-referenced. It would be nice if you can even take pictures and upload them, manage surveys, or integrate hardware devices like Bluetooth scales, printers to print small receipts for farmers, or even quality measurement devices like laboratory equipment that basically adjusted for the field situation. In practice, you see that many cooperatives, many traders, many food processors, they have simple paper-based systems. They might even use some computerized systems like an Excel sheet for the farmer database. They might use ODK as a survey tool or even do mobile payment, but it will be directly from their phone, which will become very difficult to scale it. So we as a company developed this system many years ago for ourselves where everything was integrated. So 5 years ago, we commercialized the system to offer it to the farmer traders, the commodity traders, the food processors, the farmer cooperatives. And to keep it affordable, we offer it as an off-the-shelf system. And it is designed to work in areas where the internet is very poor or completely absent. And so this is often a challenge with some of the applications that are available. They are very much designed for using the latest technologies, and they might need 4G or even 5G to function properly. In the system, of course, there's a lot of data that is can be used in many different ways. The beauty about systems like eProd or in general supply chain management platforms, that you can bundle different services. First of all, you have a platform typically with a mobile application, sometimes with a special desktop application that has additional functionality in the office. And you can integrate all kinds of devices, other software or services, like for example, for weather information services or agronomic advice. And the way you bundle these, you use the different modules, basically allows you to create different packages for farmers. So you might be able to link farmers to finance because they now have a credit scoring and because the farmers have a contract and also receive agronomic advice and inputs through certain dealers of certain quality. Suddenly the banks are interested in financing them. So there are lots of possibilities there. Then with organizations like UNIDO that might support many private sector companies, it is also possible that the different partners of UNIDO or NGOs use their own system, but some of the information is shared. So this can help for systems where you need long-term monitoring of the impact of the system. So we commercialized our platform a few years ago. We are now in a number of countries. We have many different sectors, about 30, and we have probably about over 250,000 farmers that are receiving a market through our platform. As a company, we have a strong functionality to work offline, and we have a well-developed back office support. And let me leave it here. I try to keep the presentation a bit short to make sure that there is a bit more time for questions and answers. Let me go through the chat. Okay, so what we have received few questions so far. I just received one. Let me quickly read. Okay, so there is a question from one of the speakers, Sean, about blockchain and also the advantages and possibly some disadvantages, challenges of blockchain, especially during the introduction in places where these systems are relatively new. I would like to quickly give one comment on field systems like eProd, but there's a couple of those that can actually easily feed into blockchain platforms. So I see Fernando opened his screen. That is, I'm sure he also would like to comment on that. Many blockchain systems at the moment are focused on more on the often the factory settings, but of course all the steps before should also be included. So Fernando, would you like to comment on that, or Camilla? You're still muted, Fernando.
Camilla, up to you if you want. You can go, Camilla.
Ah.
That doesn't, yeah. Go you first and I go later.
Yes. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we have seen, I would say, okay, so first of all, also regarding the first mile, it's the presence of the internet to implementing such a internet-based system. This is the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges, I would say. But this is really technical. This is really like on how to set up the system. And the other biggest challenge is definitely ecosystem management. This is like number one. So we're talking about a system that gets deployed across a supply chain of actors that probably have already established some business relationship. And we're talking about starting a conversation about data sharing. And as much as this could be beneficial, in fact, is the most difficult topic to discuss. So data sharing is definitely the biggest challenge. So putting everyone at the same table and agreeing on which data are going to be shared and how, and from which system, this is the biggest challenge. And finally, also the input of data. So where are we getting the data from? Because the data is as good as the data on the blockchain is as good as the data that get put in, right? We say it's immutable and doesn't get changed anymore, but where are we getting this data from? If it's just manual input, and most of the time we have to use manual input, particularly on the first mile, how do we make sure that this data are actually good, that we're not just like putting random data in it? So this also maybe goes back to the first technicalities that I mentioned together with the internet. So yeah, three of these challenges. Fernando, do you want to add something?
No, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with you, Camila. I think the ecosystem is key. For me, is one of the key. I mean, the technology is there. Technology is not a problem at the moment. Blockchain technology. There are many platforms. You will have the technology. The problem is to share data. I mean, is to convince the ecosystem that sharing data is the right way to get competitive in the market. No, I mean, we have to break this idea that information is power, this idea that the competition is between companies. No, I think nowadays competition is not anymore between companies, it's between supply chain. I mean, if you are able to synchronize your supply chain, you will be able to be more competitive in the market. This is something that blockchain can enable with that. And for that, I mean, I think webinars like this are great to increase the awareness of what blockchain can do, or what sharing data can do for all the companies. And that is the first step, education and awareness. And after that, it starts really small, trying to understand, as Camila said, what the data we share, start small, bring everyone in the same page and try to show to the market that this technology works and work for the supply chain. That is the main challenge, and it's in our hands to solve the challenge. I mean, it's a big change in the mentality of how we are working at the moment.
Great. Thanks a lot, Fernando and Camilla. I don't see any other questions in the chat. What I would like to suggest is that we keep this presentation a bit shorter. Then we really would like to encourage everybody to put the questions in the chat so we can bring them up during the panel discussion and take a little bit more time there. We would like to take 5 minutes break. We'll put up a very short movie introducing the African Milling School and their training program with an example of a miller in Nigeria. So we'll take a 5 minutes break, And then we will continue with the rest of the program, please. So I'll see you again in 5 minutes, please.
Thank you.
I am Zainat Gende Shide, the first female flower miller in Nigeria, probably safe to say in Africa too. I never believed or saw myself as someone taking up such a challenging role in life as a miller. But life, they say, is full of surprises, if only we are willing to let it take us there. When I heard Flower Mills was recruiting for graduates ND for a training program, I applied and I was invited for the interview. Finally, after a series of interviews, I was employed at Flower Mills of Nigeria PLC, and I was the only lady. I want to be a miller, the best miller in the world. Flower Mills of Nigeria PLC is the second largest flour mill in the world. We have 16 broiler mills with a daily capacity of 8,500 metric tons. My day begins with a systematic check by walking round the mill, floor by floor, checking the cleaning and milling sections. Even if the mill is good, I still like to check all the roller mills, one after the other. Managing people and the plant, the two go hand in hand. Each needs to be adequately monitored and life becomes easy. So you see, doing all your necessary mill check not only make your life easier, it also make the team working with me. I have a passion for learning and stretching my limits. I was promoted to shift packing manager, and thereafter I was promoted to assistant miller. Then came the African Milling School announcement. I had been selected to represent Flower Mills of Nigeria PLC at the first African Milling School program in Nairobi, Kenya. And I've always tried to be a good employee, and the African Milling School created more determination and provided me with the foundation, skills and knowledge to further enhance my future career in milling. Initially, flour milling started as a job. I enjoyed learning, but soon milling became my passion. And I realized milling offers me a chance to build a career and gives me a great opportunity to be successful in life. My journey to grow has just begun, and I am so excited about the future. I am Zainat Gende Shide, the first female flour miller in Nigeria, probably safe to say in Africa too. I never believed or saw myself as someone taking up such a challenging role in life as a miller. But life, they say, is full of surprises, if only we are willing to let it take us there. When I heard Flower Mills was recruiting for graduates ND for a training program, I applied and I was invited for the interview. Finally, after a series of interviews, I was employed at Flower Mills of Nigeria PLC, and I was the only lady. I want to be a miller, the best miller in the world. Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC is the second largest flour mill in the world. We have 16 Bula mills with a daily capacity of 8,500 metric tons. My day begins with a systematic check by walking around the mill, floor by floor, checking the cleaning and milling sections. Even if the mill is good, I still like to check all the roller mills one after the other. Managing people and the plants, the two go hand in hand. Each need to be adequately monitored and life becomes easy. So you see, doing all your necessary mill check not only make your life easier, it also make the team working with me. I have a passion for learning and stretching my limits. Came the African Milling School announcement. I had been selected to represent Flour Mills of Nigeria PLC at the first African Milling School program in Nairobi, Kenya. And I've always tried to be a good employee, and the African Milling School created more determination and provided me with the foundation, skills and knowledge to further enhance my future career in milling. Initially, flour milling started as a job. I enjoyed learning, but soon milling became my passion. And I realized milling offers me a chance to build a career and gives me a great opportunity to be successful in life. My journey to grow has just begun, and I am so excited about the future.
So welcome back, everybody. Everybody seems to be excited about the future. Not only Husseina, but also Sean Ferris. And I would like to invite Sean now to join us again for his second presentation. He will talk now about the future of smart agribusinesses in the industrializing countries, and will give us example how agtech, fintech, development finance, etc., are shaping the world of smallholder farmers. Welcome, Sean. In the meantime, I also would like to really encourage you to put all your questions into the chat. Just write them, and then after, at the end of the presentation, we will go through your questions. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Helmut. I wonder if could you load the deck from your side? I think that might help a bit with the lag coming through the system.
Yes.
I know that great, thanks. I'll tell you when it comes up. I have a bit of a lag on my side, and I'm just wondering if that's similar for others, actually. It may be today there is something in the system that's slowing it down. I'll tell you when it comes up on my side. It's still blank here. But as we're starting, let me just sort of say that, yeah, the next sort of session then is really going to be talking about how these different types of technologies are coming together. Also with one of the most important ones, or the changes that we're seeing, which is in financing. And if there's anybody else out there on the chat, just tell me if you can see that. I've still got a blank here, actually. Which slide are you looking at, Helmut?
The future of farming, and now your screen.
Yes, exactly, the
And now-
future of farming.
Okay, if
And
you just push it
now
ahead.
we see
Part 2, how agtech, fintech, etc. shaping and will shape the world of
Yeah.
smallholder farmers.
Fine, okay, keep going then, go to the next one then. So this is a shameless plug that I'm going to make to you. So every year, Catholic Relief Services, except during the times of COVID, but when travel is permissible, we run a tech conference for technology in the African context or globally in the development context. So we bring people together from agriculture, from health, from emergency, from a whole range of different sectors, water, and they come together to talk about the systems that they are actually using. And interesting, I still don't have the first slide here actually. But Camilla, if you can see it, just tell me if you can see it, because if you can see it, maybe I'll go on your cue.
So you want me to tell you what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
So I see sharing information about AG Tech.
Yeah, okay. So this conference
Correct.
then really provides the opportunity for us to share information with over 1,000 people from governments, from research, from the private sector, public sector, all sorts of different actors that are bringing their technology to talk about what's happening in the field, and also the opportunity for the sort of the attendees to talk to each other and get a sense of which direction things are going to and the types of technologies that people are engaged with. Okay, next slide then. So when you see this next slide, this, is it there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the next slide then just gives you an example on the right-hand side. These are all the types of emerging, relatively small companies that are working on different types of digital solutions in the agricultural production and marketing space. Basically the same thing that Camilla and Fernando were talking about, this idea of supply chains. These are all the different companies that come together that provide different solutions in the ag sector for smallholder farmers in Africa. And also, I would say a little bit for the small and medium-sized enterprises. So you'll see there a combination of people like eProd, Chainpoint, SourceTrace, Cropin. All of those companies are providing supply chain support. ICAO, obviously, for the dairy industry. You've got Muddy Boots, who is very high tech. And then you've got other organizations like CUSA, that are getting down to and Precision Agriculture for Development. They are getting down to grassroots, last mile kind of delivery systems. Okay, on the left-hand side, you have the platforms. So these are large international companies who are providing sort of farm to fork solutions, and they can provide these solutions at a global level. So these guys tend to operate at the most sophisticated level, but because they are providing incredibly efficient platforms, they of course provide the major future competition. So at the moment, I would say that most of the people using digital systems are linked into one of those companies on the right-hand side, and slowly they're providing the innovation which seeps into a lot of the bigger companies' technologies. So we're basically using a bit of a mashup of both of those actually. So the next slide then, if you move on to that one. Basically, there are 4 key areas that we're seeing a lot of the technology use in smallholder agriculture in Africa. So the first one is looking at digital agricultural services. And that shot, if you can see that picture, is a company called Digital Green. And they provide video training solutions in local languages to farmers, and it provides an opportunity to do peer-to-peer farmer training. So a farmer will see a certain type of training. he and his colleagues, or she and her colleagues, will go to the field. They will do a video of a particular production technique in their language, and then they will show that to many hundreds of other farmers. So that kind of peer-to-peer approach is basically getting technology into the hands of the advisory services and more into the hands of local private sector extension teams that are basically selling information to farmers. And that's all helping them to identify and see new things, new innovations, and be able to test those in their own farms. The second area then is looking at digitized input services. And this is basically enabling or providing solutions that allow farmers to tap into any number of different local services, whether that's transport. The picture I'm showing you is from Hello Tractor, so that a tractor service provider puts his tractor onto the system. Anybody in his location or her location can basically call that service, just like Uber, but Uber for tractors. And this idea of digitizing the business development services is allowing people to link farmers to agrochemicals, to seed merchants, fertilizer suppliers, market information, weather systems, all of the different systems that you need, or the information points and services that you need in agriculture, are slowly being put onto various platforms to share that with other farmers. The next big one then is digital financing. So on the one hand, you have these mobile currencies like M-Pesa, which is the digital platform for sharing or just doing financial transactions, which is allowing farmers to buy and sell and to do that on their phones. But you're also getting systems now that you can talk to particular service or financial service providers to provide your data on who you are, what you're farming, what your current financial loan status is, and whether you can access additional financing to support your farming system. So that financing aspect is an area where huge amounts of interest. Currently, the amount of people actually pushing money through those systems is relatively small. But I think what we're expecting to see is there will be very huge growth in that sector. And that is really going to start to unlock farming systems in Africa. And I think also in the same ways with these micro businesses, the SME businesses, like local millers, who will be looking to get working capital or some sort of capex to allow them to buy improved machinery. Final area then is using digital systems to help link farmers to markets, whether that's a local market, into a national market through trading networks, or international markets, as we've heard earlier in the talks about these very sophisticated formal systems where farmers can actually tag their products that can be entered into a system, and that will then flow down through a traceable market approach to an identified buyer, and that will obviously attract much higher incomes over in the future as people start to put more trust and value into digital marketing systems. Next slide.
It's there.
Fantastic. Okay, so the thing that I'd really like to talk about a little bit then is to give you a couple of practical examples of thinking about these digital systems and designing them really for sustainability and for scalability. Now, we've heard a little bit about this in previous talks, but I'd just like to go through a couple of examples and think about how that process of innovation, getting the idea organized, getting a sort of a minimum product, an MVP ready to go, the intermediation, which is the idea of being able to test it in multiple locations and to bring it to multiple types of clients for them to see how it works. And that's a refinement phase, if you like, and then you take the idea to full scale. Okay, so next slide. What I'd like to talk about then is one of the products that we're going to hear about a bit later in the panel, which is Kusa, which is a company looking at a range of different sectors. They look at agriculture, health, and supply chains. And this is the example here of the agripreneur. This is a private sector extension agent, which is providing a series of different services to the farmers. So here they're bundling those 4 major areas, providing crop advisory services, access to quality inputs, access to credit, and linkages to markets. And Shri and his team have been testing this model in the system for, let's say, 3 or 4 years. And they're basically trying to get to this idea of one extension agent looking or supporting around 200 farmers. Now, up until quite recently, most farmers were getting their extension services from the governments. And those government agents, who generally have very little logistics support, so they often find it very difficult to get to people, but their ratio is about 1 to 1,000, and in some cases 1 to 1,500 farmers for each of the government agents. So they are completely overwhelmed by this, basically increasing numbers of farmers right across the farming system. So CUSA then is developing a new set of private fee-for-service type agripreneurs. Okay, so next slide. They are basically working on a system where all of the data that comes in through that agripreneur. Oh, no, sorry. Next slide is the extension services. Hopefully you're looking at a slide where you can see the micro learning system. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes, that's the same.
Perfect. So what does the agent actually have? So the agent has a backpack, and you can see that in the middle slide, that guy on the motorbike. Inside that pack is about 20 or 30 tablets. Each of those tablets has a lot of information in microbyte-sized training. So how to grow tomatoes and all the different aspects of growing that in the local language. So when the agents arrive, they can talk to farmers about what they're doing. They can also give the farmers the tablets so that they can actually get a video telling them how to do different things. And they can go through all the videos that are most important to them. Now, if they're not interested in tomatoes, let's say, they can look at any number of other crops or livestock products. So that micro learning kit then is put into a pack. There are people out in the field, and they can take that information with them. Plus they can take a brick, which provides data to people. And that allows them to scale the approach to not just the 20 people you're seeing, but 20, 40, 60 people within a village context. And then they can go to 20 or 30 villages each. And that then is supported post-training by a micro-mentoring process, again, digitally supported. There is some face-to-face, but it's all of this big sort of augmentation then, if you like, with online training systems going through phones. Okay, next. That then gets onto this overall system. If you imagine lots of different extension agents all putting data into a platform, receiving data, all of that information of the different types of services, and particularly transaction data on trainings given, money going through the process, and also the metrics on how well it's working, all is coming back onto this one network system, which is then feeding to the smallholder farmers, and then it comes back to a dashboard so that the management team can see how well the agents are performing, where they are, what types of information they're sharing, and what sort of consumption of that information is being effective to the clients. So it's basically providing you a real-time view of how a training process is emerging over time. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so this final slide then, you can see that over the last 3-4 years, the CUSA team then have been slowly piloting these different types of agents, providing them with training, and just now they're up to 4,000 agripreneurs, over 500,000 farmers. I know that one of their first targets is to get to 1 million, so they're well on their way there, and that's in 3 countries. And of course, they're looking to see if they can scale that to many countries, looking at a really wide range of different commodities. So I think, this is just one example where you're seeing technology coming into the system, calibrating itself with the clients' groups, and then slowly scaling. And of course, each of these agripreneurs is getting a long-term job. They will in the end develop some sort of input supply location or shop, and that provides them with sustainability, and the CUSA team are able to link all of that data back to the large input suppliers and the financial service providers so that they are paying for the service as well. Okay, so that's one example as we go through this digitization process. The next example then is coming from Yara, which are one of the largest fertilizer companies in the world. And we're going to hear a little bit from Crispin about this in the panel as well. But basically, here you have an input supply company which is coming into the market and starting to build out a digital network on top of their physical network so that they can now use Yara Connect, and that builds in a database sort of supply chain management system with their input suppliers, so all of their locations where they're selling produce, and it gives them, again, a much faster view of what is in the marketplace, who are the clients, what are people buying, so that they can maintain their services to those people, plus the fact that they can also keep their input suppliers educated, if you like, or given new information about what are the new products, how are they best used, how can farmers use them profitably and safely. And the other part of this is that they're going beyond the input supply network to the actual farmers themselves. So, you know, right to the people using the products with a farm care system. So getting to farmers with what are the new products, how they can use them, and trying to understand the problems that farmers are getting firsthand. So again, you're having this ability to have a physical network and then really multiply that out using a digital extension service, and then backing that up to a database which provides you with, I wouldn't say real-time data, but near real-time. And that goes back to, you know, following the talks from Eduardo, just to be able to see what is happening in your factory sites or your client levels. That information, instead of having to do surveys, you're getting all of this information directly from the marketplace. Okay, next slide then. So let's just go on a little bit about, you know, okay, so those are a couple of examples of scaling and sustainability. I'd like to come back to the financing side, because in the end, anything within the agricultural sector really does come back to how is the money being distributed and getting in to drive technology and innovation. And from the world where I come from one of the international NGOs, this is kind of a trajectory, if you like, about how we're using funding or investment streams to be able to accelerate the work we do, but also to get the more people in a way that is scalable and sustainable. So I would say development over the last 30 or 40 years has been driven by the basic idea of a project. So an NGO receives some money, it designs a project, let's say on production of maize or post-harvest handling of maize, and it provides the clients, the farmers, the SMEs with capacity building, access to technology, and as many people have said, linking those people into supply chains or value chains. That's a great process, but sustainability is still very questionable, because you are only able to use the money that you receive. You know, that's it, it's done once the project is ended. And so you do have a constraint in terms of access to finance and the duration of the intervention. So a lot of people now have moved that into what they call challenge fund projects. So in this case, instead of the NGO being the driver of the innovation and the process and the financing, a challenge fund is developed so that anybody from the private sector and from different levels of the private sector can now engage with the program, and they basically access the money by having the best business case, and they can access the development money by providing a matching amount of money from the private sector company. So in this way, you double the money that is working in the system, and so you have a lot faster innovation, a lot more market-based innovation, and activities are directly engaged into the value chain. Okay, the other thing that's coming into play is that not only are we thinking about matching grants, but also bringing in debt products. And the first thing that we're looking at is impact investing. And this allows us to tap into existing funds. So if you can imagine, you have your project money, your matching grant, and now you're tapping into an impact fund. You're getting 3 or 4 times the amount of money for the same idea now. And this is basically introducing companies that may not have taken on debt before with a, if you like, concessional finance, but also they get a lot of capacity building to prepare themselves to take on debt. And the final part of that, and this is the story that I think will be the future, is that you'll see projects doing all 4 of these things. So that as you get into impact investing, those are for the more informal emerging companies. And for the formal companies that are in the system, they will get technical assistance from the projects, but most of the financing for the actual activities will come through debt financing. And that will be done through local formalized banks who up until now have not wanted to invest because there is literally no data in the agricultural context. But with the digitization process, they can now get a much better understanding of their clients and feel much more confident about making investments in that space. So the idea of using digital platforms to de-risk the market, extremely important, not only just in the private sector, but in the development world as well. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so you should see something then on DeFi. So decentralized finance. So I think this is where Camilla and Fernando were talking about this idea of cryptocurrencies linked into blockchains, which is now really starting to pose a real alternative to the typical legacy products that provide investments into any market system. So I'm thinking about banks, people like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. All of those actors who are putting financing into the system are currently being disrupted by this idea of a cryptocurrency, which can now offer you basically a way to avoid making payments to the existing banking structures. It also offers you a much, a lower transaction friction in terms of doing business. So overall, it can open up new market options, new financing systems at lower cost. So it's extremely interesting to tomorrow's business world. And it also means that if you think about the work that Jan William was describing, if you have digital management systems sitting on top of a supply chain, you can start to introduce things like smart contracts or these NFTs into the system. And that, again, allows you to take on some of the complexity that we see in the farming system, where you have an informal market linking into a formalized market. So that idea of using a new system, an open ledger, a situation where you can, as Fernando was saying, this immutable database to be able to enter products into a system, to be able to track it, and then pay finances through the system, all without having to go through the formal banking system. Extremely interesting to a lot of new entrants. And I think currently what you'll see is the level of diligence that you have to get into the markets for formal financing is extremely problematic. Most banks see their profits in other areas, and unless they can get a huge amount of data, they will not come into the agricultural system. So this does provide a way of using a fairly sophisticated product to support, pretty basic production systems and sort of informal supply chains where you have tens of thousands of farmers who are currently not really having any sort of economic or financial profile to be able to engage in the system. So final thoughts then, or one more slide on this. One of the things that I think is really going to be interesting in the future is looking at this idea of where is GameFi going? Now, as you'll know, huge amounts of people playing virtual reality games, and that industry is worth several $billion. But what we're seeing now with, again, this fusion of blockchain with gamification is that people now are playing games in the metaverse when it's not just a free access idea. If they want to level up the ability of their avatars in the system, or if they want to buy additional capacities, if you're building a factory in the internet, or if you are building your army or something, you then have to pay real money for people to to gain the assets. At the same time, if you start to win the game, you actually win real money. So this idea of actually being able to put financing into the virtual world or the metaverse is really accelerating this process again of looking at these blockchain technologies. And one of the other things that people are using this for is to actually learn how to do certain things like running a factory in a virtual marketplace. And you can imagine that people will start to build, if you like, real financed factories in the metaverse, and they will be selling products to people in that metaverse. And we're thinking that we might be able to use some of that thinking into a link between the virtual world and the real world, so that you can actually buy things in the metaverse, which will also have a real world procurement, let's say in a farm in Africa. So what I think in the future is that we'll start to see gamification and the financing going through that, having virtual world, metaverse activities linked to actual real world production and the systems that go on there. It is a fantastic way for people to learn. And I think, that's when you'll see a really amazing blending between virtual and real world activities. Final slide then. We're just looking at sort of, what does that all mean then? So I think, for people like UNIDO, there are 4 critical areas to look at: advisory services, any kind of input BDS services, financial services, marketing services are all areas that need a huge amount of support and will have a huge effect on MSMEs across the developing world, but also certainly in the agricultural world. It's definitely a question of not just single point activities, but getting the right blend of digitally augmented services that is going to accelerate innovation and bring additional investment into the ag value chains. And I think that is going to have a huge effect when you start to see really effective smart solutions that bundle and offer services to, let's say, the farming community or the processing communities in a way that's affordable and is really easy for them to use. I think that is, we've seen from a couple of examples, it's scalable if you provide a really effective and competitive solution that fits a sensible business model, a growth model, and as I said earlier, is also providing services and products that are sustainable environmentally, and also providing an improved social contract to the actors in the value chain. And overall, if financing is one of the key challenges in the growth of all of these businesses, the ability of using digital to de-risk the opportunities and to find a combination of philanthropic concessional finance to sort of enable people to get to full formal financing systems is really the holy grail that we're looking for. And with that, Almut, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you very much. We do have a few questions. One was about also whether we would share the slides, the presentation. So yes, this will be done after the event. But we have a couple of questions for Sean. The first one is, Kusa and Yara examples are very promising. Do they have any problems left to solve? Any bottlenecks?
Now, that is a great question, and I'm not going to answer that one because Shri, who is the CEO of Kusa, is on the panel, and Shri will take that one up as soon as we move over. So do hold that question, because I can just tell you, farming systems are incredibly complicated and there are lots of bottlenecks, and Shri will have a long list to tell you.
Great. The next question is about, so for Fernando. So Fernando, you mentioned that the competition is no longer between companies, but between supply chains. Do you see this happening already? And if so, which supply chains and which companies?
Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, it's happening already. I mean, it's not any specific supply chain or any specific company. It's just what we are seeing in the world. No, I mean, our products, it doesn't depend on our suppliers most of the time. I mean, it depends on your supply chain. You can see now it's a clear example about the microchips crisis. It's a supply chain crisis. I mean, people like Buller use microchips in any single machine. I mean, if we have a failure in our supply chain, we have a failure in our product. I mean, you have many examples on the world. No, bringing farm products from, for example, in Europe, from Spain to England. No, I mean, there are many actors in the supply chain. Any of these actors fail in the supply chain, you are not going to be able to put your product in your market. I mean, it's not a specific one. It's not a specific sample. It's everywhere. I mean, every single product depends on their supply chain, and so that is new since 20 years ago in the supply chain academia. They are repeating and repeating that competition is between supply chains. I mean, it's any part of your supply chain fail, your product fails.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I have one last question for Eduardo. So for Bühler Solution Insight, do you have clients in developing countries? And how much is the investment that Bühler's clients need to make to install the system? What is the return on investment?
Yes. So now the investment that we have to talk here, it really is going to depend from customer to customer. What he needs to have from the Bühler Insights, because you can have either a package with, for example, the 3 solutions that I sent you, or you just want to have the yield management system. It's really going to depend, but the investment overall is not high. I would say for the basic investment is a signature. It's around 5,000 Swiss francs yearly. And developing countries, yes, we already have customers here in Africa that have them. We have customers in South America that have them, in Asia as well. Returning investment, it really is going to depend a lot, again, about which kind of package the customer is getting, and prices of flour that he has, or the grains that he has, price of energy. So it really depends a lot from customer to customer. Of course, if there is a case study that someone wants to get in contact with us, I'm here to help with that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
No problem.
There's a last question, a pragmatic question. How long does it take the setup of an operational digital platform, inception, pilot, implementation in a new context with approximately 1,000 farmers? So that I could actually, Jan Willem could answer that. I can also answer that. So as eProd, what we normally do is we have first an intake process, so where we try to understand the existing operations of a company. The next step is data preparation and setup. Once we have done that, we come on site with the training. So what we realized is you need to do a lot of hand-holding with the companies, especially smaller companies, and it's a change management process. So we have 2 training moments within 6 weeks, where we will be on site training on the different modules and see how they can be implemented within the company. We have weekly check-in calls, so within 2 to 3 months, the company can be up and running. Great. So there are no other questions in the chat. Let's continue. Thank you, Sean, for your presentation. Oh, there's one more question, actually, that just came in. How is trust in digital services built among small farmers? Maybe Jan Willem can take over this question.
I see, Sean, you started your camera. Maybe you wanted to answer that, or shall I answer?
No. You go ahead. You go ahead. I think you're the best person to answer that.
So I think trust is really about transparency, creating transparency. Simply by paying farmers on time, by doing the things you promised them, that already built trust. Of course, you have blockchain, you have all kinds of advanced things, but at the end, the essence is that you just, you are transparent and you do what you tell the farmers you do. You actually really do it. Tools like eProd and other similar systems can really help there. I think the relationship with farmers will always be a little bit vulnerable because it's dynamic, but the longer you work with the farmers, the longer you haven't made any major errors, the stronger that relationship is, and the more resilient and the more forgiving farmers are when you make mistakes. So it's just a matter of time. I think in the case of eProd, we have experiences where within one season, farmers are used to the system, and it would actually be then very difficult to go back again to paper-based systems or systems that are less good at quick reporting, creating this transparency. I see Fernando also opened his camera. Do you want to add something to that, Fernando?
Yeah, happy to add something about trust, because blockchain usually is related to trust. But I would say trust is nothing to do with blockchain. I mean, trust is about the collaboration between companies. Trust is about data sharing. I mean, it's not just in the business world, it's everywhere. No, as much as data you share with someone, you trust more that person. But to share that data, you need to trust. I mean, it's like the chicken and egg problem when we are speaking about trust and data sharing. I mean, increasing the trust, increase the data sharing, increase the data sharing, increasing the trust. Trust for me, in terms of blockchain application, is at the center of everything. I mean, if there is trust now between the partners that conform a network, a blockchain network, the data sharing is not possible, and then the blockchain is not possible. I mean, so as Camila mentioned, we need to understand what are the data sharing standards in the network and the trust standards before to implement anything. I don't know if Camila, you wanted to add anything else? Or...
Sorry, I missed the question, actually. If you could just repeat it.
No, it's about trust and digital services, how to boost the trust when we are applying blockchain, and yeah, we trust and data sharing, yeah, basically.
I think so. Boosting the trust is really difficult to answer. I don't think there is a recipe for like how to boost the trust between two or multiple parties. I think if there is, however, something that could be done when we start implementing blockchain is maybe to focus on two parties that have already some business relationship going on, but that maybe need some more trust between the two of them. Probably that could be a good place to start with, right? So if they are really requiring some trust, some increase of trust between the two, then maybe there is some space for better conversation, right? Because the parties are really motivated in having more transparency. However, exactly, then there's always the question, like, which data is everyone ready to share? So, yeah.
Great, thank you very much. I think we probably should move on to the panel discussion.
Yeah.
I saw one question just now, which I think is maybe we can quickly answer that. It's about the minimum requirements or conditions to set up such digitalization initiatives in the field. I think it's important to realize, especially in Africa, we have, of course, many small companies, micro SMEs that cannot invest in new computers or new phones, or where the internet is extremely poor. So it's important also to look into those minimum requirements. So just in the case of eProd, for example, it can synchronize in a 2G network. It can work fully offline. It is designed to work on old hardware and old software versions, like, for example, Android 7 that came out 6 or 7 years ago, or old Windows versions, because in the reality, that is often the reality on the ground, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. We will continue receiving more questions and answering them, but I think at the moment it's good to start with the panel discussion.
Yes, great. So we will now conclude with a panel discussion to learn about the types of skills that are required to ensure the successful introduction of smart tools for agribusinesses. The panel will be moderated by Sean Ferris. So we have a number of interesting panelists. We have from CUSA 1, and I'm not going to say so much about it anymore because Sean talked already about it, Mr. Shriram Bharatam. He's the founder and chief mentor of CUSA 1, a platform that works alongside 4,000 youth agripreneurs and creates sustainable economic opportunities for all agricultural ecosystem actors. The next one will be Crispin Ekonga, the sales agronomist at fertilizer giant Yara Tanzania Limited. He's leading the field implementation of Yara's digital app projects in Tanzania, such as Farm Care and Yara Connect, that we also saw already from Sean. And through that, they technically support both input dealers and farmers. And then we have Caroline Charlo. She's a communication specialist and a school administrator and personal assistant to the director of the African Milling School since 2015. And there she has seen over 1,000 students from all over African and Middle Eastern countries that have passed through the school in various programs. The main focus lies there on the vocational apprentice miller program, but they do also have a lot of other short expert courses, work seminars, etc. And last but not least, there will be me. I'm again the CRO and co-founder of ePro. I'm an admin and marketing graduate, but I have been mainly a managing director of a Kenyan food processing company, working with 8,000 farmers at the Kenyan coast. Over to you, Sean.
Great, thanks very much, Ahmed. And okay, so what I think we'll do is we'll go one by one through the speakers. You'll have about 5 minutes each, okay? And I think the things that we would like to hear a little bit is, what are the key skills that you're seeing are required to engage your type of approach? What types of people are involved in this? And what is your sort of sustainability plan with the process? So with that, let me open it up to Shri to talk about CUSA and the agribusiness entrepreneur model. Over to you, Shri.
Sean, thank you so much. Can you just confirm you can hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Perfect, thank you. So with your permission, I just want to step back a bit, take a minute to set the context. There are over 500 million smallholder farmers. If I zoom into East Africa, specifically into Kenya, an average Kenyan farmer is 63-year-old, while an average Kenyan is 19-year-old. There's a massive intergenerational crisis going on. The elders are not interested in agriculture, their next generation continuing to do agriculture. Youth don't find agriculture interesting. So they're all looking to migrate to bigger cities in pursuit of some decent livelihoods. On the other hand, you find these service providers who have fantastic products. When I say service providers, these are traditional companies and digital companies, all of them, but they find it extremely expensive and also difficult to reach these smallholder farmers. They are far away and they are scattered, and it's all a fragmented market. So here is where we saw that, one, we can keep talking about the problem, as they say, till the cows come home, or second, do something about it. So we looked at the problem, and we also looked at the strength of the youth. The strength of the continent and most of the developing countries is the power of youth. So we are identifying enterprising rural youth, and I need to state it. They don't have any agriculture background other than seeing something, growing something, doing some odd works. They don't have formal education, and that's the biggest challenge, and that's where we're picking them up. We get them ready. Ready is Rural Entrepreneur Development Incubator. We've designed this, we have curated this over a decade, and now we are able to scale this even in the remote areas. I saw in one of the questions that how do you do this in countries where there is no power, no internet? And Sean, as part of your presentation, you shared one of the picture where you see a backpack that is designed deliberately to work without internet, without power, Of course, it will last for 7-8 hours, and you still need to get power, but you are in the business. So answer your question, the skills that are needed is fundamentally attitude. Second, connect with the local communities. We always pick up agripreneurs or these agents from within local communities. They have to be from the local community. They need to have the trust of the local community members. And most of the time, we also engage the community elders as part of the selection process. And that's what makes this model very sticky. And then we invest on them. For every 20 agripreneurs, we have a seasoned mentor on the ground supporting them in addition to the resources that we provide them. Now, while this is where we are able to generate the trust, and we don't charge the farmers for the extension services, we don't. And that is the part of the service that is always underwritten or supported by philanthropy and developmental actors, because we don't want to charge the farmer who is already earning just $2 to $3 per day, an extra dollar just in the name of some advisory service. No. But that's where they establish the trust. They use also the smart projectors to be able to screen content, gain the confidence in local language. And the second thing is they capture the demand. And now the service provider angle is they don't have a demand. They are not able to give discounts because they can't predict what is the kind of market that is there. So using all these agents on the ground, we are able to size the demand. Using the digital infrastructure in the background, we are able to sit with the service providers and say, next season, this is the kind of demand that we have. Negotiate deeper discounts, pass majority of the discount to the farmer, retain a percentage with the agripreneur for their own sustainability, and Kusa retains a percentage point for our own sustainability. Thanks, Sean.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Sri. Crispin, if I can ask you to give us a little bit of insight into what Yara is doing. I think Crispin's calling in from Tanzania, so let's hope that he can hear us. Crispin, you're on hold at the moment.
Yeah, I can hear Sean.
Yeah, I can hear you, Crispin. Yep, great. Do you just want to tell us a little bit about what Yara is doing in your digital systems and what sort of people you're looking to support that rollout?
Yeah, Yara is doing a digital solution with smallholder farmers and also the retailers. So we have applications which solves problems to retailers, to both retailers and farmers. And these applications or digital solutions solves problems and creates demand to our different solutions, particularly fertilizers. So we have one of the farmcare application, which it is your own farm. A farmer can set up planting dates, measuring farm, how to use fertilizers and calculations. So you can get a recommendation from the application, and I think we can increase yield to these smallholder farmers with the like of our applications. Also, we have found a challenge from the retailers, agro dealers, and distributors lacking enough knowledge on agronomy. So we have developed an application that solves problems. Also, there are some articles, expert articles and videos to help educate farmers and answer their questions when they are at retailers, farmers, and shops. And also the retailers can also get to rewards. You can register the business and scan QR codes to the bags of fertilizers, and you can earn points, and later you can exchange points for rewards or redeem them for cash. The more you sell, the more you get cash. So we have created an application that particularly not a retailer can earn points, but also the application can help the retailers learn some articles and videos to help educate farmers. Lastly, but not least, we believe that a connected farmer is a prosperous farmer.
Thanks very much, Crispin. I think I've lost you for the minute. Are you still there? No. Alma, can you still hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you. But we also just have like 10, a little bit more than 10 minutes remaining, so we need to also...
Exactly. Well, let us keep moving forward then. But I think you heard from Crispin how they're integrating the systems there. Caroline, do you want to tell us about, the sort of solutions you're looking at, but also the kind of people involved and the skills that you need to make that work? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we all had the chance to watch that video from Shidi Huzenat from Nigeria. It's a good summary of what African Milling School is doing. So we want to bring up the skill in the milling sector to the next level. And obviously, from what you could see, women are less involved in this. So for her, she was part of the pioneer class, and with time, we are building up the skills in the industry. And like Eduardo said, we are now moving to Industry 4.0. The people who are also on the ground running the equipment need also to level up to the technology that is coming up. This has been a problem mainly in these developing countries in Africa, in Kenya. We have had a problem where we had millers just training on the job. It's a hands-on job. It didn't have much prestige. So you find that, like Shri was saying, many youth find agriculture and all these hands-on things not to be prestigious. They want or they favor the blue-collared jobs. But now here at the African Milling School, we are trying now to, if I may use the word, to legitimize or to bring up this skill that, yes, it's hands-on, but it's something that somebody can take pride in. And at the same time, we want to ensure that quality is also being improved on the production level. At the end of the day, everything about food production is interconnected with the value chain, starting from the farmers. They are producing the raw material. If the raw material is not good enough, then the miller, of course, will have low production from the, maybe, let's say, his wheat. So if you're supposed to get maybe 80% of flour from a certain tonnage of raw material, if your raw material is not at a certain standard, then you find that, of course, the production is affected and so on. We've seen consumers also having a lot of awareness, so the quality of product has to be high. Then again, technological advances are also forcing us to have skilled labor in the market. So the African Milling School is also training our millers that, look, our local grain is also good. The quality is as good as the imported grain. So how do you, and then in the end, the chain goes down like that. The farmers now feel more motivated because they have a market for their produce. And because now the millers demand high quality produce, then the farmers again are forced to up their game so that whenever they bring in their produce, it's accepted in the market and it's not rejected in favor of imports. So from time to time, we hold seminars, and in the past, we've had seminars with the Canadian Grain Institute, where they come in and they showcase the value of their product. I would very much love that it would also be with the local grain. That's why I was saying, even when we are doing our training here, we use all types of wheat from Russia, from Argentina, local grain, and we take it to the laboratory and we show the students, look, you can achieve a certain outcome with the local grain as much as you can achieve this with your imported grain. It's just a matter of now ensuring that the local production can meet the demands of the industry. Because why we are importing a lot of grain is because our local farmers are not able to provide enough to sustain all the millers. Tonnage has increased, a lot of demand. We are having very high growth of population. In Kenya alone, I think every year we have over 1 million, an increase of 1 million people. So it's all interconnected. If the farmers are doing well, then the millers are doing well, and the value chain goes on improving and improving. So that's what we are up to with the African Milling School. And on the technological side, yes, it's hard to convince people to take up technology. One of the greatest fears I've seen with people is that if we are automating or if we are using a lot of technology, then the jobs are taken away. That is partly true because automation is seeing a decrease in the need for, human intervention. But at the same time, as you could see, even with Huzenat, they have a very huge mill, 8,500 tons every day. Somebody has to be on the ground. So we improve the skills of the millers, and at the same time, we tell them, look, you have to keep up with the trend. The trend is that now everything is moving to digitalization. We also had the problem of, look, I'm storing my data in the cloud. How safe is it? Will my competitor be able to access it? Will my competitor be able to oust me out of the game because of these issues of data sharing? So for that, we dispelled those myths. We had a seminar last year. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we were not able to invite all our clients from the Middle East and Africa region. We only showcased the Beulah insights and the smart mill to the Kenyan millers, and it was a mixed reaction. There was a lot of silence in the room when we said, this is now the future of milling. Everything will be digitalized. But at the same time, we showed them the value of putting everything on a cloud monitoring. How will it affect your yield? How will it affect your outcome? How do you save on energy? How do you save on all these other related costs so that at the end of the day, there is high food quality? Food safety is one of our biggest topics as well. And we showcased them on a live platform, how this is going to be achieved. And slowly you could see that the ice was thawing a little. And one of our clients has actually purchased this. And now we are going to be monitoring from now henceforth, after we've already installed it, how his yield and his production has been improved ever since now he took up the Beulah insights. So it's a journey, but every journey starts with one step. We are getting there, even in Africa at the same time. It started the same way with the mobile phones. Everyone had their doubts, but I believe right now everybody has at least access to a mobile phone, even if it's not smart. At least there is good access to, the connectivity. So with time, we hope we'll get there, but we've already started the journey and we can see a positive change. Thank you.
Brilliant, Caroline. Thank you very much. And Almut, you've got 2-3 minutes to give us some sort of insights into some key barriers, perhaps, and some real skills that people need to engage in this approach.
Yes. So, well, as you already know, we provide a supply chain management software called eProd, and our clients are mainly off-takers. Some of them are rather big, but many of them are really small, medium-sized, and some of them actually rather weak companies. So implementing a new system with them is not easy. It implies going through a lot of change, new things that the companies need to learn, things that they need to change within the company. And that involves an entire company. So what we skill sets required is when we come on the ground, we identify a project implementation team that exists normally of a couple of different departments. Simply also because supply chain does affect not only the field, you need the finance and admin people to pay the farmers, you need the quality management team to assess the quality, etc. So it's a rather like a team of a couple of people that we put together with the company and that we train them. The lead is very often the admin and finance department, which is on top of accountability, on top of stocks, on top of payments. And they often are very data driven, so they immediately understand the systems and the processes and everything involved and manage it.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, listen, I think we're out of time, but I'd just like to thank all the panelists for some great information and some real life practical examples of what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how they're sharing sort of this new capacity base that will, I think, enhance the next generation to engage in many different parts of the agricultural and processing value chain. So many thanks for that. And Almut, I'll hand it back to you to go back to UNIDO. And thanks very much to the UNIDO team for giving us the opportunity today.
Great, thank you very much. Are there still any questions in the chat? No. So then, thank you very much, everyone. I will now ask Diginity Sarah, the Director of the Department of Agribusiness Development in UNIDO, to basically give us a closing remarks. Diginity Sarah leads the overall coordination of UNIDO's work in promotion of sustainable food systems, agricultural value chains development, skills and entrepreneurship development. Thank you. Karibu.
Thank you, Almut and colleagues. Let me start by thanking colleagues from Buller and the associated institutions, ePort Production, African Milling School, CRS, CUSA, and YARA for excellent presentation, panel discussions, and sharing your knowledge with us. Many thanks also to Virpi for organizing this webinar. I also want to thank our colleagues in the headquarters in the field for your interest to attend this important webinar. This webinar is very timely as we in UNIDO try to mainstream digitalization and digital solution in the design of our projects and programs. And it's also one of the priorities of UNIDO management. The webinar has given us an insight on the application of digital technologies or digital solutions along the value chains. The webinar has indicated to us the unique position of the agro industries, the processing industries, being at the center of the value chain for accumulation and sharing of data, which will provide an enormous opportunity for the different applications. These applications include the blockchain, the traceability, the energy management, the benchmarking of different enterprises among each other, the smart agribusiness, the payment system, the certification system, and also the digitalization, also in the data, let's say it's the importance of data, especially in financing the sustainability after the end of development projects, which usually are financed through grant, which you will not have enough resources to continue after the project ends. These are very useful for our work on promoting different linkages between farmers to industries and to regional and the global value chains. I'm sure the colleagues in UNIDO have found this webinar very interesting, and I'm sure you will also try to use knowledge and information we got today in our daily work. From our department side, we will continue to partner and share experience with Buller, especially and their associates, in our effort to mainstream digitalization in our work, especially in micro, small, and medium industries upgrading programs in our member states, especially developing countries. Many thanks again for the presenters and the panelists for their wonderful webinar. Thank you very much. Back to you, Almut.
Thank you very much. So we have come to an end. We will put up a survey, so I would like to ask everyone to still answer a couple of questions. And then for those that have missed anything, feel free to reach out at 3 p.m. CET. We will repeat the session again for whoever couldn't attend or missed something. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too. Have a nice afternoon.